Hey everyone, so I'm in Blender and this video is going to be all about using your sounds from Ableton, GarageBand, whatever DAW you want to use to be able to pilot different properties in Blender. You could make things rotate at a specific speed, grow, you could make lights change, really any parameter inside of Blender you can change with your music. So let's explore how we would do this. Well, this starts in whatever DAW you're using. I'm using Ableton, and so for the sake of this example, I made this very simple drum beat. Great, and I'm actually going to export both of these stems independently. So I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to go to File, Export, and I'm just exporting these selected tracks right here. Great, all of this looks good. Where am I going to export them? To this folder that I've created for this project. If you're going to be doing this, you should be creating a folder before you export your stems that you can put these into, and your Blender stuff can live as well. Great, saving that. Now that that's all done, let's go and see if it worked. Looks good. Great, both of these look great. So what do I want to do? Well, remember, when we animate things in Blender, we are adding keyframes. I'm going to give a very quick example. There are multiple different ways to be able to add keyframes in Blender. One is by turning on this auto keying button that you'll be able to find in Layout, and you'll just want to make sure that you are selecting the timeline editor if you're not seeing it. Right now I can click this cube, I can press G, and you'll see immediately there's a little yellow square that has appeared down here. That means that it is tracking that this square is over here on this frame. Well, great. Well, on frame 20, I want to move our square all the way over here. And Blender immediately knows that it needs to fill in everything in between. And that's great. But if we were going to try and get this to match the amplitude of our music, it would be really, really challenging. It would take a lot. So what we can actually do is we can create keyframes based on the amplitude of the music that we've created. So how do we do this? Well, first off, I'm on frame 1. I'm going to turn off this auto keying as well. And all I need to do right now is, well, first off, I want to think about what I want to control. In this case, I want to make the bass drum kind of make this go up and down. And I'm going to make this pretty big. This would be the absolute volume that it would be able to reach. So this would be 1. The amplitude is going to give us a value of 0 or 1, 0 being no sound and 1 being, the absolute maximum of sound that it could give at that moment. And so I'm going to make it about here. I mix this somewhat well, so I imagine this will come to about here. Consider how you mix this and what it's going to look like. Great. Now, I know I'm going to want to change the Z scale, which is right here. And you'll see that that's 13.554. Now, I am about to go in and add the I, or add this keyframe at 13.544 down here. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I apply this transform. And you'll see after I did that, and I did that by pressing Control A while I was in object mode, and I then clicked on all transforms. I had to have my box selected. Now, what did this do? This normalized the scale so that now the Z scale of this is 1. It's saying, hey, this is just what we expect this shape to look like, and so a Z scale of 1 is just this scale. Great. So now that I have this, I can navigate over here and press I. Or I could have done it in any of the other ways that I add keyframes into here. You'll see I have this great little yellow box down here. Let's go ahead and add music into this so that it is piloting this box. Well, first off, I'm going to go to a different editor type. I'm going to go to this graph editor right here. You can navigate to it by clicking on this and clicking over into the graph editor. Once you're in here and you're on frame 1, and you want to make sure that just Z is selected because I don't want to control the other scales. I can go and click on channel, and I can go all the way up here to bake sound to F curves. And now what sound do I want to change it to? I think the first one was the one that had the bass drum, so I'm going to click this right here, and let's see. Great. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Duncan, this looks pretty good, but in my version that I've just done this with, I'm actually not hearing any sound. And that's okay, because I added this file in before I did this tutorial. And the way that I did that is I went down to Video Sequencer, I brought this to frame 1, and then I just said add, and I added the sound that I wanted to. I'm actually going to add another sound right now, which is the second one. Okay, now I can hear all of it, but now my next mission is to be able to get this hi-hat to pilot something else. So let's get maybe just like another cube, just because this is a demonstration. I'm going to put this over here, and I'm going to scale this up. Oh, actually, let's go on this axis. That'll be kind of fun. Great, yeah, I think that'll be good, maybe a little bit larger. And now I want to be able to make sure this is on frame 1, and I'm going to go back to, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to normalize this by pressing Control A, making sure that this is now 1. It was, I think, 26 before. And now that I've done that, I'm just going to add this to my timeline. So if you go to my timeline right now, you'll see that this little box is added here. And if we go back into the graph editor, you'll be able to see we have the exact same setup as before. And I don't want to change anything except the X scale in this one. So I'm clicking on X scale, I'm going to channel, and I'm going to bake sounds to F curves. And what am I choosing? Well, I'm choosing the second one, and let's see. Now this is a really simple example, and I don't think that this inherently is like super exciting. What I think is exciting about this is that you can really just do whatever you want in terms of changing parameters. So I could also get this, and I could say, hey, I want to take the rotation. I want to add that right there. And then in terms of like the Y rotation, maybe, I don't know, I'll just say channel, big sounds to F curves, and I'll just do the first one because that's the first one right there. Okay, now it's getting like a little bit more dynamic in terms of that. But what if I wanted to change something like I want to move this light? Maybe what I want to do is I just want to actually play with the power of this light. And that would be pretty good. So when the bass drum is at its maximum, it'll be at a really high brightness. And when it's very quiet, there will be no brightness at all. So what can I do? Well, first I can go and I can press I on power. I've gotten here by navigating down to this light bulb, the data properties window, and pressing I right here. I can do this for any parameter inside of Blender. Remember, I can navigate into it, put my mouse over it, and press I. Now we see that this has added this keyframe not only onto the timeline, but also into the graph editor. And I can go channel, bake sounds to F curves, and I'm going to choose the first one, which has the bass drum right there. And we have a problem right now. You see, this is going between -1 and 1 for its value. And because of that, we're never really going to see any light coming off of this because the default value here was about 1,000 for us to be able to start to see any light.
So what we need to do is we need to add a modifier onto this value that kind of multiplies it and changes the maximum and the minimum. And the easiest way to do this is, if you do not see this side panel right here, you can press N. You're going to go into here and you're going to select envelope. Inside of envelope, you'll see reference, min, max. Don't touch that. It's kind of confusing that they would have that and it wouldn't necessarily affect it in the way that we want. What we do want is we want to add a control point, and now we can control the minimum and the maximum. And this right here is just the frame that we're adding it on. So don't worry about the frame that you're adding on. It will have an apply ubiquitously. Okay, that's starting to look a little bit better. Let me go ahead and add in a plane just to make sure that this is doing what we want it to do. Perfect. So that's it. By baking sounds to F-curves, you can change anything inside of Blender, whether it's the focal length, the depth of field, textures on a mesh, the location of the camera, lights, anything. And this is a really, really basic, simple example that I don't really find very exciting. But I know that the things that you're going to create will be interesting and exciting. So excited to see what you make, and we'll talk about this more in class on Wednesday.